Well, I read on Kotaku that it's better than Civ 5 with the Brave New World expansion pack.
Welcome to the r/Civ 60 plus Civ Battle Royale Mark II Part 3. Hi, I'm Aquatic Sasquatch, and you may remember me as the modder who brought you such classic civs as Texas, the Burrs, and, alongside colonialist legacies, the Kimberley Aboriginals. Today, I'll be your guest commentator, a first for me. If you're interested in doing guest commentary for future parts, PM TPangolin on Reddit. Be sure to keep up with all the hype and fan-produced content in this here Megathread. And if you're here from r/Civ, be sure to join us at r/Civ Battle Royale to partake in the trash talk, detailed discussions, and hourly drinking contests. Hold on to your butt cheeks, because you're in for a wild ride. Take a moment to soak in this lovely map made by Cylon L, showing the state of the world as it was at the end of last installment. Don't forget to open the full resolution image. And courtesy of Tpang himself, here's our brand new graphic showing the top 10 rankings from the end of last installment, meticulously compiled by a group of experts. We begin with the game-changing development in Sri Lanka as the vital statue of Zeus is constructed by Parakramabahu I in the shadow of Sripada, granting the owner's units a 15% combat bonus when attacking cities. Can Sri Lanka put it to use against their enemies? It seems they'll have to for now, as any prospective conquerors would have to embark their forces and take massive casualties to seize the island city. Our two Australian civs seem to be getting along without any border conflicts so far, but as the Kimberley settle counterclockwise along the Australian coast, Jandamara and Henry Park seem fated to one day confront each other under the shadow of Uluru, in the Sea of Red, that is, the Outback. The One True Faith TM is established in Juarez, Mexico. With none of their immediate neighbors even having a pantheon, it seems likely to become the dominant religion on the continent. Amen, hallelujah, peanut butter. Meanwhile, Texas is quickly filling the gaps in between their sprawled out cities. As the sun rises on the year 3280 BC, Southeast Asian geopolitics are complicated as ever. On the religious front, a man named Buddha seeks to foster peace and enlightenment in the region by spreading his teachings to the citizens of the Burmese capital. At the same time, on the other side of the planet, Mohammed and his Ayyubid followers establish Cairo as the holy city of Islam. Only 8 tiles away from the holy city of Judaism, and split in the middle by the sacred Mount Sinai, one can only hope both faiths value tolerance and won't seek to annihilate one another. Although, who am I kidding? We want blood. Give us blood. No, seriously. Give us, now, just the blood. Give the fucking blood! With precious new holdings in Crimea and Anatolia and nary the military to defend, let alone expand upon these acquisitions, Byzantium may quickly become the prime target for both European and Middle Eastern warmongers. Also worth noting is the Armenian expansion into Anatolia and the massive Spartan army around Messene. Uh-oh, is it finally happening? A Maori settler lands on the southern shores of Tasmania, right under the noses of the Australians, while another sails north. Will Te Raupahara take this important citrusy prize? We hit turn 50 and Alberti, a Babylonian operative, compiles his data on worldwide production levels. Yakusha, Ethiopia, and the Mughals make the top 3, and Vietnam, Indonesia, and the Maori round the bottom 3, seeming much more content to enjoy the South Asian beaches, rather than worry themselves with global domination. Tibet, finally prepared to found a religion, realizes Buddhism was taken by the Burmese only 2 turns before. Well, screw Burma, the Dalai Lama proclaims. We'll make our own Buddhism.
With blackjack and hookers!
Lhasa is now strangely the holy city of Akhat-U, which is apparently the religion of the Indus River Valley civilization. More notably, it is also the very first religion listed in alphabetical order. Regardless, this is an exciting development for Tibet fans, as their unique ability and unique building revolve around founding and spreading a religion. Also, Akbar, not one to stop chasing his dreams, defiantly plops his settler 2 tiles south of Jiangxi. Hawaii seems content to play the isolation game, slowly expanding out of their initial archipelago into other nearby South Pacific islands. A cold wind blows through the Blackfoot capital as the Inuit steadily march southward, founding Quamanituak, a snowball's throw away from Crowfoot's palace. However, they seem confident peace will be maintained, establishing a trade route from their Alaskan city. With nowhere else to go, the Blackfoot claim fertile land in the Great Basin and California, blocking a Sioux settler at the last second. Mexico expands into the Mojave with Veracruz, pretty much blocking off any other civs with Californian dreams. Texas is going hog wild with settlers, sending one unescorted up the mighty Missouri River, right toward the edges of Sioux land. Lincoln appears to have similar intentions, doing much the same, a little to the east. An Irish scout, ! And a Texan warrior great buccaneer settlers in Florida with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Henry Morgan currently has no cities on the North American mainland apart from their Panama Canal, and this settle could change the whole game for him, opening the door on potential American or Texan campaigns. In South America, much of Tierra del Fuego remains unclaimed as both Chile and Argentina produce settlers in hopes of changing that. Chile founds La Serena on Eva Perón's back door, and another settler is conceived in Concepcion. Two rival Argentinian settlers seem ready to go on the other side of the peninsula. In the Amazon, Argentina marches steadily north with the rainforest colony of Jujuy, while the Incans and Brazilians scramble into the heart of darkness to claim whatever valuable resources they can reach. On Florida's Gulf Coast, the pirate stronghold of Petit Goave is established, a wretched hive of scum and villainy where a handful of jarred Texans and starry-eyed Irishmen live in the twilight amongst the hardest criminals and mercenaries of the Caribbean. Also, holy crap, look at that Mayan army. The calendar marks a very bad day is fast approaching for someone in the region. Texas brazenly settles Corpus Christi right in Sitting Bull's neighborhood, and America founds Baltimore right across Lake Michigan from Toronto. Sam Houston has a fair army, but it's spread too thin to effectively defend against a coordinated invasion. That's still one up on Lincoln, who barely has an army at all, and would be easy pickings for a bloodthirsty Canadian or Sioux conqueror. The Yakuts, knowing full well how dangerous their neighbors can be with the slightest provocation, bide their time and simply gather horses and technology, settling their cities very locally, non-offensively, and at their own pace. Mr. Philippines is slowly shaping his homeland into a prosperous yet isolated archipelago, as Filipino settlers prepare for an arduous journey to nearby islands. Every major African player has a bunch of settlers on the move, scrambling to draw the absolutely insane borders that will drive future generations of cartographers to tears. Ethiopia forward settles Congo, but Congo still sends their own settler beyond that city towards Ethiopia's heartland. Several more settlers pop out of cities on all sides. An Ashanti settler heads east, Moroccan warriors gather around Casablanca, Carthage is just like, what's going on, eh? And Mali is getting ready for something. The Ayyubids expand into the hostile western deserts, and Arabia seeks to fill in their peninsula at their own pace. A Finnish scout seems either very hardy or very lost, wandering through the scorching deserts around Damascus. It's like a sauna in here, one says. Napoleonic and Nazi German forces whittle down the walls of Neapolis one brick at a time, surrounding 3 brave Roman archers on all sides, forced by the odds and by the emperor to keep shooting until they run out of arrows or are struck down. How long they hold out against the storm determines if they will be remembered as fearless heroes of the empire or inept cowards who failed the glory of Rome. Sparta has acquired their unique unit, hoplites, very powerful spearmen that differ slightly from the vanilla Greek hoplites. I don't think any of Sparta's neighbors are eager to maul on Labe any soon, so Sparta will likely have to go on the offense to test their warriors' merit. Attila, Timur, and Kuchum Khan drunkenly huddle around one another and compare each other's armies. Attila comes out on top because Timur is so out of it, he's pointing his army in the completely wrong direction. Having achieved absolutely nothing at all, Leonidas makes peace with Stalin, vowing to return one day, subtly slipping a settler between the cracks of Poland and Byzantium. On another note, I absolutely love any slides that show the Russian wastes like this. There's always so many scouts from so many different civs. I counted scouts from at least 10 different countries in this one. They did it! Play of the year 3160 BC. The Maori have successfully established the city of Wangdangatarango on the island of Tasmania. Their reward, all the oranges and fish they can eat, as well as a perfect staging ground for any potential military action against Australia. Iceland seeks to establish a ring of fire along the icy coasts of the North Atlantic and Arctic Oceans, starting by rounding out Greenland. However, an Inuit Unark scouts out Greenland's interior. And we all know there can only be one. Brahma Krama Yama Hama Mama Mama, the first's holdings on the Indian subcontinent are pretty well staffed with archers, warriors and workers, and another prospective settler wanders around Colombo. Alarmed by this development and the Tibetan encroachment, Akbar is finally rushing out a military with his top 3 production levels. Australia seems much more willing to settle inland than the Kimberley are, founding Adelaide in the desert, while Jandamarra oversees the foundation of Bidyadanga along the Great Australian Bight. Still, nobody wants to brave the blistering red sands of the outback, save a few lone units. Korea's northern colonies of Jeonju and Daegu have grown exponentially since we last saw them, and now they have actual military units protecting them from a hypothetical Red Chinese aggression. Japan settles Nagoya on the southernmost tip of their home island, securing it. Further expansion may require military action, particularly a strong navy. The Great American Clusterfuck is living up to its name that I may or may not be the first to use. I remember people talking about some other great clusterfuck, but I forget in what region. Anyway, let me summarize. Texas strong, America impotent, Sioux strong, Canifest Destiny strong, but unfortunately entirely northern bound. The shit hits the fan for the Ashanti, as Mansa Musa and Hannibal, formerly bitter rivals in the previous BR, work together to take down Osai Tutu. However, Tutu's first unique unit is in play on the battlefield. Drumroll please, for the Drumroll Warrior. At around the same time Sparta got their hoplites, Persia begins producing immortals. Unfortunately, if we want to see a rematch, one or both of them will have to carve their way right through Byzantium and Armenia pretty soon. Armenia needs an adult, as Timur aggressively settles right in their fertile blind spot. Napoleonic forces deliver the killing blow to Neapolis. Rome has no time to mourn the dead, as the Frenchies continue to come in along the Mediterranean. Hitler is once again denied a significant war trophy, having gone to war a few times already with nothing to show for it. The worthless settler brigades we saw in the Norwegian-Swedish War of Part 2 have reached their final destinations, with Norway founding Eidsvoll and Tromsø north of Sweden, and Sweden settling Uppsala and Turku right in Norway and Finland's respective arseholes. More importantly, the one r/civ battle royale was too eager to dub, the Pussycat of the North, Gustavus Adolphus, is sharpening his fangs on Eidsvoll, not one to ignore Norway's reckless forward settles. Finland, used to having bad neighbors, sets up small squadrons of archers at key points on their border to keep an eye on Stalin and Gustavus, while establishing the city of Jyväskylä along the Barents Sea. A group of Arabian scouts wander past Moscow while searching for the fabled Solners the Finnish scouts of Damascus spoke of so fondly. Sibir seems just as happy to turtle as the Yakuts are, but Afghanistan and Tibet are moving to entirely block them off from the Gobi Desert. In the north, 2 Chinese settlers are escorted to Siberia. One can only make assumptions about Mao's plans for his people. Perhaps he intends to build the world's greatest amusement park, giving free tickets to dissidents and dirty capitalists. Things look very uncertain in South Africa. Shaka still attempts to worm his way out of Kruger's grasp, and the Congolese expand into the Namib Desert. If Uncle Paul doesn't act quickly to close the distance between Pretoria and his Central Africa holdings, the Boers may lose it all. And yet, a Boer settler has a showdown with a band of Congolese warriors and settlers in the Congo. Has his blitzing success in the last battle royale gone to his head? What are you doing, Paul? Saladin settles Alexandria on the North African coast, just a little too close to Sparta for anyone's comfort. Sparta's borders still block the Ayyubids and their precious Suez Canal into this corner of the sea. Byzantium has another settler walking about and still no major military force to speak of. Caesar makes peace with Napoleon, knowing he is not prepared to retake Neapolis, and wanting to avoid further losses while still at war with Hitler. Hey, look at Portugal way over there in the corner. I guess they expanded into Spain at some point. Good for them. And now, not to look at them for another 3 parts. Sweden secures Eidsvoll just as the tides turn and Norway gains the military edge. Seeing this, Gustavus hastily makes peace, foregoing the worthless Arctic city of Tromsø for another day. The now housecat of the north must rest and repair his army before getting ahead of himself. There's also still plenty of room for either player to settle between them, meaning future wars could be much faster and more intense. Just across the Arctic Circle from the battlegrounds of Scandinavia, the Inuit expand east through Nunavut by founding Nyankungut. Blackfoot and Sitting Bull put their cards on the table by founding their own cities in the Canadian tundra. Tsuut'ina for the Blackfoot just north of the Sioux tribes of Itatsipko and Sihasapa. Fun fact about the last one, Sihasapa is the Lakota word for Blackfoot, whereas Siksika has the same meaning in the Blackfoot language. As a result, the Sihasapa have the same English name as the Blackfoot Confederacy, and the nations are sometimes confused with one another. Chile wins the race to Tierra del Fuego with the settling of Valdivia, though a large space still remains mysteriously unclaimed between it and Argentina. What happened to the Argentinian settlers? I see one in the mountains southwest of Rio, but the other one seems to have vanished. Oh, there it is, in the fucking Amazon rainforest, where the aggressive yet strategic Brazilian settling of Fortaleza seems to have locked down a big chunk of the region for them. An Australian cargo ship travels the Gold Coast, seemingly promoting peace between the Australians and Aborigines. But one must remember that Australia gets big bonuses from naval trade routes, so this move may be more self-centered than it would appear. Shocked by the Maori takeover of Tasmania, at least 3 Australian settlers are being escorted around in a scramble to nab another fertile and strategic city location. Geez, look at Tibet and their insanely vertical borders. They settled Bamda, Nagchuka and Chamdo on the edges of the inhospitable Gobi, strategically blocking off Sibir, Afghan and potentially Mongol and Chinese expansions. But does Tibet have the army to back up fortitude of this level? Songtsen Gampo certainly isn't making any friends this way. With land between Chongqing and Tianjin unclaimed by top dog Mao for quite a long time, both Korea and Vietnam have settlers in the area looking to snag new lands for themselves. Worth noting is that while populous, the core Chinese cities of Beijing and Shanghai seem to have stagnated all this time. In the Ryukyus, Rizal claims Okinawa for the Philippines, using Taiwan as a base of operations. Meiji can't do anything about it right now, even if he wants to, because he simply doesn't have the navy for the job. The Black Circle is slowly coming to fruition in the Caribbean, with a pirate stronghold of Leogan in modern-day Maracaibo, Venezuela. For now, the Jolly Roger rules the wave despite completely lacking a navy. The Mayans are still scary, but strangely quiet and stationary. The gaps are quickly closing in North America, and any major expansion in the heartland will be drawn by the sword, not the pen. Obviously, because I don't think pens were invented by 3010 BC. Anyhow, take a look at the new Canadian city of St. John, and all those Sioux and Blackfoot settlers running around like they own the place, because right now, they quite frankly do. Texas would rather focus on developing their lands than rapidly expanding their military. Another Sioux settler heads north in the scramble for the Arctic. Worth noting is how the Inuit have barely expanded west of their capital apart from their sole Alaskan city. The bloody fray in West Africa seems more of a bloody stalemate at this point in time, with Mali and Ashanti units smacking into one another in the jungles, and Carthage absolutely not helping at all. Was the entire war a clever ploy started by Hannibal to get the two off his back? While a Boer settler ventures dangerously north, it appears that Kruger at least has a carpet of archers and warriors to defend Pretoria from theoretical Zulu aggression. Still doesn't match up to Haile Selassie's magic carpet ride from hell. Kilimanjaro remains infuriatingly untouched in the east. A Canadian trireme sails past an equally oblivious Icelandic settler just over the hills from the ocean, seeking more prime Greenlandic real estate. The horde descends upon the USSR. The Hunnic menace has awoken and directed its initial primal fury at the dirty commies. Attila the Hun, Royal American hero. The USSR has fared pretty well in the rankings so far, but unless they can stop the stampede, they may be doomed. Vietnam goes for the steal, blocking a Korean settler and isolating Chongqing in one fell swoop. I don't expect Mao to let this slide, but is his army strong enough to defeat the Trongs and hold back potential counterattacks? Or are his plans still focused elsewhere? Horrific tales of man-eating bunyips, man-eating yowies, and various other man-eating wildlife of all sizes and varieties work perfectly to keep almost all Kimberley and Australian settlers far, far away from the hellish outback. A competition is now underway to colonize, actual quote from Henry Parkes, literally any island other than this fucking crazy prison. Like the other day, I saw a spider the size of a dinner plate run across the floor of the palace and under my bathroom door. I've had to hold it in for like 2 days now. The ring of viable coastal cities is closed in the north by Darwin. The Maori also throw their hat into the ring, sending a lone settler out into the mighty Pacific. One begins to wonder why TPang bothered hiding the Babylonian submarine in Antarctica instead of just dropping it on top of Uluru. Leningrad falls to the Horde, trademark. Half the population falls in battle, but the other half is slowly being slaughtered to the last man, woman, or child by a bloodthirsty degree of Attila himself. Stalin is best off leaving the citizens of Leningrad to their fate, to focus solely on the defense of Moscow. How embarrassing it'd be if one of the initial top 10 picks to win was the very first to lose their capital. Tibet's luck has been pushed to its breaking point. The extremely aggressive founding of Rutok, only 4 tiles away from Karakoram, prompts a joint Mongolian-Mughal invasion of Tibet's precious outer holdings. The rapidly growing coastal city of Jiangxi, blocked off from its homeland by a single Burmese/Afghan tile with only a single archer to defend it, prepares for the absolute worst, as the Mughal horde waits in the darkness for the order to charge. How much will Tibet lose? Can the Soviets stop the Hunnic horde? Who will come out on top of the scrambles for Africa, the Arctic, and the Pacific? These answers and more next time. Here come the info addict stats for the end of this part. First up, in population, the Mughals still maintain their top position, followed closely by Afghanistan, Argentina, Poland, and Yakutia. Despite their effort to worm around the Boers, the Zulus are dead last in population. Israel follows, and surprisingly, given their recent expansions, the Buccaneers and Tibet are right behind them. Yakutia maintains the lead with 14 technologies, narrowly followed by Argentina with 13, and then a massive tie for 12, including a lot of players, I guess. And in the bottom, a 3-way tie between the Zulus, Champa, and Indonesia with 9 each. In land area, the Sioux and Inuit are precisely tied for the title, followed distantly by Canada, Afghanistan, and the Timurids. At the bottom, Israel, Korea, and Rome are brothers in impotence. In total number of cities, the Inuit take the lead with 9, with a 4-way tie for second, bringing together Canada, Australia, Tibet, and the Sioux with 8. Babylon? Come on, Sid Meier, that submarine totally counts as a city. It's stationary and everyone in the Civ lives in it. So what does that make it? Use your brain, pal. Anyhow, England, Rome, and Israel are tied for last with only 3 cities to each of their names. Well, this brings us to a close. You may have noticed that there aren't any religion overviews or military manpower overviews this time around. They, quite frankly weren't taken for this part. It's just the way it is. Don't panic. They'll be back next time, we assure you. I had a real blast narrating this, so I hope to get to come back and do it again in the future. Y'all come back too, you hear?